All right, well, welcome to the very first edition of the Komie and Cole podcast. I'm David Komie, and as you can see on the left side is my good friend Curtis Cole. How you
What's
doing
up?
today, Curtis?
David, man, I couldn't be doing better. I'm loving life. It's Saturday. What else can I say?
So this is a financial podcast, and my boy Curtis here has just had an amazing 2 or 3 weeks, just made so much money. You want to kind of tell the folks what you've been trading lately, what you've been doing, what your strategy is, and just share with us, please.
I'd love to. I think, I've been thinking about, obviously, in preparation of today's podcast, and this is our debut show that we get to sort of let folks know what we're about. I've been thinking that what's probably the most important thing that I could pass along related to what I've been doing is how I've been doing it. So to basically rewind a little bit, I've been doing great. I've been hitting six figures just about every single week, and for somebody that likes to generally start off with a very small account and build it up, that's my style. That's what I do. And I think what I'd like to sort of get into is the how, and the what. I would
Okay.
say, yeah. So basically, in a simple nutshell, I've been focused on the daily, weekly, monthly, hourly flow of money around the world, 247. I'm basically tracking it based on futures, based on crypto, based on pre-market, aftermarket, during the market, the first 3 minutes, the first 30 minutes, the first hour, the first hour and a half. I mean, I'm focused on watching it. I don't sit in front of a screen, and I don't even sit in front of, like a lot of people sit in front of many screens. I don't. I wander around my kitchen. I drink coffee with my phone. I'm very, mobile. Sometimes I do it when I'm on a hike in the woods, but that's kind of been a part of my technique of being able to hit some of these six-figure weeks that are fairly unusual for somebody who starts off with about a $3,000 account.
Let me just ask you a quick question. How long have you been at your craft?
Well, I started in 1981 on learning about the stock market. In 1982, I actually put feet on the ground at the New York Stock Exchange. My grandmother took me. We had a blast. That sort of really opened my eyes to the flow of money and understanding that. Fast forward up to the 90s, late 90s during the tech boom, and I started trading some of that with small amounts of money. And I would had my good days, and then I would lose. You learn. You learn what leverage is. You learn expirations. You learn, what the sucker bets are. You learn what the real investing is, and so on and so forth. But
So
really,
you've been at it over 40 years.
yeah, but I've been, I would say, actively, seriously focused on it for about 9 years,
Okay.
about 10 years, 10 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So let's get back to how you're making six figures a week lately.
So I'm focused on a handful of stocks, the ones that represent the future, the ones that represent people's concerns for the future. If you're somebody basically that has money right now and you have kids, or you have any concern whatsoever for what's going on in the world, whether it be geologically, geographically, politically, economically, everything, is always in a state of perpetual anxiety. So what investments are out there that relieve that anxiety? That's what I look for on a macro level. I filled
So
up,
give us
yeah.
some examples.
So number one on the week would be Bitcoin. It's something that I've been bearish about for quite a long time, but I feel it has crossed through a new threshold that gives it a lot more value than it ever had before. And I can go into depth on that later. On the equity side of things, I'm very focused on companies that are really driving the forefront of health, technology, security. We're talking Palantir, C3 AI, Microsoft, NVIDIA, ARM Holdings, AMD. To me, these are, Amazon on some levels, Apple on some levels, Netflix on some levels, and Google on some levels as well.
What about Tesla?
Yeah, Tesla is an oddball for me. I've had a love-hate relationship with the company and the stock. I've made
Hmm.
money on it in the past predictably, and I've lost
Hmm.
money in it in the past unpredictably. It's I gotta say it's not performing as I wished it would be at this point. I think NVIDIA is eating its lunch a little bit, but even though they're different companies that do different things. I do love Tesla for a lot of things, and I think going forward, they are going to be, without question, always one of the top 10 most powerful entities on the planet.
Okay. So you mostly buy call options on the stocks that you are into.
Yeah, I like to buy calls and I do trade mainly options, sometimes stocks themselves. Um, like I usually like to play options to make the money to purchase the actual stock.
Hmm.
And there's benefits to both. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about where do you want to start? You want to what you want to start talking about the companies that you're interested in most? You want to start talking about Bitcoin? What do you want to talk about?
I think it's probably a cool idea to start with Bitcoin because I think this week is the week, or at least this month, I feel is the turning point where Bitcoin really takes off. So I think we've just passed a lot of earnings season in the equities market, and things are probably going to go flat. Okay, economy's looking strong. Okay, we know there's going to be probably a rate cut in June, if not May, but probably June. That's already on the market right now. I think the market pops on Monday, but I think what's really important is Bitcoin. And that's kind of, I mean, yo,
What
you're my
switched you from bearish to bullish?
you and a few other things. No, I mean for real, like for the people at home that don't know us, David is one of my buds. Like I've known David for, God, going on 10 years. I've known of you longer than that as an incredibly cool guy around town, successful attorney, musician, great artist, songwriter, philanthropist, just cool dude, investor. And you've kind of been, whispering Bitcoin in my ear for some years now. And we've sort of followed it here and there. And I just felt that there was a lot of impediments in the way and a lot of unpredictabilities. But right now, with things like, Sam Bankman-Fried in jail and, the ETFs coming out on the table and basically everything really across the board legitimizing Bitcoin, I feel like, yeah, this is definitely getting on the relative ground floor.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting that it's recognized now as its own asset class rather than just like an equity or something like that. Because once you get in your own asset class, then you have people that are trying to put together their portfolios, and they like to diversify and put money into different asset classes. And it's by far the smallest asset class out there. And, that's incredibly bullish now. And the funny thing is I think a lot of people think that they're late to the game because they didn't buy it at 30 cents or $15 or $800 or $1,100, and it's approaching 70,000. But it's an asset class that is 15 years old. And the ETFs are less than 40 days old. So we're sitting at the precipice of this history. Can you imagine if we were there when people found gold, 5,000 years ago, or we were able to be there within 15 years of the stock market opening, or within the first 40 days of an S&P 500 ETF, like the first major ETF. So it's really a historical time. And I think rather than being late to the game, we are still just so early to the game. I think 99% of the people own 0 Bitcoin. And I mean, you're a convert, you're a smart guy. But I hang out with people that are very smart people, and they just want none of it. Charlie Munger called it, or denigration to society, and Warren Buffett called it rat poison squared or whatever. And people just say it has no value, but I think they're missing the point. We're printing money at the rate right now of, and this is just in the US, just one currency, of $1 trillion every 100 days, but that's accelerating. Pretty soon that'll be 70 days, 50 days. And the currency is getting increasingly worthless. And of course, there's a limited supply of Bitcoin. So how are you taking that knowledge that you think that you're bullish on Bitcoin? How are you trading that?
So, yeah, I want to address a few points that you just made, which are really cool. I think the narrative has recently changed drastically. And I think when Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett were saying those things, I agreed with them at that time, because it really seemed like Bitcoin overall didn't really have that much of, I mean, I couldn't really see that great of a purpose other than watching, the underworld use it as a some kind of covert currency exchange. But what I see it as now is the fact that Bitcoin itself, not altcoins, but specifically, because I don't really, honestly, I'm just going to straight up say it, I don't really care one bit about altcoins. I place no value on them, other than they're pretty cool horses to gamble on and make some money with. Other than that, unless they really start getting used, and again, they're managed by people and people are fallible, Bitcoin is its own strange entity. And I think that it kind of lends itself to be the future global currency that isn't managed by anyone. Because at some point or another, countries don't trust each other. Economies don't trust each other. They all have to work with one another, but for the most part, in one way or another, but they don't trust. So, is the US dollar going to be the world currency for forever? No, I don't think so. Is there going to be some new dollar? I think it would be Bitcoin. And I don't think that everybody on planet Earth is going to use Bitcoin. It's not going to be like, that's going to be the new money across the board. It's going to be the new global money. And it's going to be the money that when whatever country you're in, if that economy or currency falls or fails, it's going to be the thing that gives you security to be able to leave the country. Because back in the day, that used to be gold. But, what happens if all of a sudden a disaster strikes and people are in mass exodus on a highway with gold in their pockets? Then, it's not long before there's bandits that, all they have to do is go door to door in the traffic of, a traffic jam. I hate to scare people, but, we're ensuring our future here of what could happen. So I think everybody's going to realize by owning some Bitcoin, it gives them some sense of security that they could basically leave wherever they are and go somewhere else with the clothes on their back and be able to have some exchange of currency that would enable them to survive. It's a survival tool.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because gold is, you can confiscate it. You can cross borders, go anywhere in the world, and just have your 24 seed, your 24 word seed phrase in your mind, and you are good. Let's say you've got it on a Trezor or something. You don't even have to have your Trezor with you. You could destroy it, get where you're going, order another one, enter your 24 word seed phrase, and there's all your Bitcoin or your altcoins.
Here's a question. Did they change it from 12 to 24?
Pretty much. I think, well, yes, it's longer now.
Okay.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
But if you memorize it, you're good.
Yeah.
So yes, there is that. And, gold does not have a limited supply. Gold basically almost has an unlimited supply. And as the price of gold goes up, it encourages miners to go dig into the ground and go find some more. With Bitcoin, you're limited to 21 million. Probably 4 million are lost forever. I think every day more and more Bitcoin are lost forever as people unexpectedly pass, etc. And so it really is, for the first time, what I feel to be the scarcest asset out there. And it's the only ETF that I'm aware of that you buy into, something with a limited supply. Everything else has more that can be done. Like S&P 500, all the companies can issue more shares. Gold, you can dig for some more. All commodities, you can just expand your mining of it. So I think this is historic. And for me, once you wrap your head around that, you realize that there is no top on the value of Bitcoin.
That's right. 100%
So anyway,
agree. 100% agree.
How are you trading it? Are you buying Bitcoin itself? Are you trading some proxies, Bitcoin proxies like MicroStrategy? And if you are, what's your strategy there?
I've been experimenting with all of it. I experimented with, buying Bitcoin, holding some Bitcoin, buying and selling some Bitcoin, trading BITO, BITO, the ETF options on that. And I can, and I as well traded some MicroStrategy options, as well as some, actually put MicroStrategy stock in my IRA.
Yeah.
And the reason, basically, here's what I found from all of that. Number one, Bitcoin is, obviously the best place if you have that kind of money to pop your stuff. MicroStrategy certainly has the highest, I guess you could say, trajectory, in a sense that it's very volatile. And
Yeah.
considering what that company is actually doing by just holding a giant amount of Bitcoin and stacking to it and then monetizing it and then stacking more with the monetization. And, as the dollar or other currencies begin to fall, MicroStrategy's value will go up along Bitcoin. So people, yeah, incredible right there. But that's, those call options are incredibly expensive. And I've been trading calls that are, either at the money or within $100 of the money. I'm not really buying in the money, and I'm buying them for about a month out. And then when I make profit with it, then I buy the actual stock and I buy actual Bitcoin.
Okay. That seems like a good plan. Seems like you've got things in the right place. What about, NVIDIA's had a great, huge run up. I think you rode that train up. you had call options on NVIDIA since what, when it was in the 400s, 500s, or before?
Uh, I actually jumped on NVIDIA hardcore last May, right before they reported their earnings report. That was like the biggest earnings report of all time for any company. And that was on May 24th of 2023. And I can tell you,
You held calls into earnings, right?
yeah, in fact, I'm just going to be honest with everybody because I don't want to BS. I want people to realize I had $10,000 in my trading account that day, and I went all in and bought 11 call options, a little bit out of the money, NVIDIA, good till that Friday. And that was a risky move, but thank God it paid off. And I basically 10x'd.
All right. So you've gone from having down to 10,000 in your trading account to six figures a week lately.
Yeah, yeah.
That's not bad. And you feel like you have an edge, right? Because of your vision of where the economy is going, the world is going, life is going. I think you like the disruptive technologies. What are some areas like that you want to be in? You mentioned Bitcoin. What else? Where else do you want to be as far as like, is it robotics? Is it semiconductors, AI?
Well, I think the equation that really makes the most sense is, all right, the intellectual property, I think, falls in the hands of ARM Holdings. I think the actual implementation of that technology right now is clearly in NVIDIA's hands. I know for a fact also that it's also in Apple's ecosystem. I know it's in other places as well, but I know that those guys seem to be killing it on a software and hardware level. I think Microsoft clearly is also, the massive behemoth of software and integration, especially government. And I think within that pocket is going to be Palantir and C3 AI. I think that C3 right now is my favorite stock going forward for the moment because I feel like they have a lot of room to run. If you basically compare their market cap to Palantir, they pretty much do the same thing. The only difference is Palantir bills differently than C3 does. And basically C3 is like 1/10 the size of Palantir. So I like C3 going forward.
Okay. Yeah, I think you told me last week at one point you had 525 C3 AI calls. It's pretty big. It's larger than any that I've ever held.
Actually, this going into this Friday, I had 750
750. Okay.
going into Friday, and I had 170 of those I bought on Thursday, and they expired on Friday.
Yeah. Well, I think we should, it's interesting. You and I talk all the time. We're good friends. There's not many people that you can talk to that have wrapped their head around investing and trading options. So we kind of talk a lot because there's not other people out there that understand what we're doing. But interestingly enough, we mostly trade opposite. You buy call options, and I am somebody who sells puts, writes covered calls, and only occasionally buys calls. So we get to the same place for the same reasons a lot of the time, but then we execute it in completely opposite ways. I think, as a matter of fact, there have been times where you've probably bought what I've sold.
That's right. But because I actually didn't end up taking your money because I don't pretty much don't ever hold till expiration. I mean, to me, options for traders are hot potatoes. Everybody
Yeah.
has to remember that. Anybody that buys an option and holds it is probably, I mean, you're putting the odds against you. You know, I look at options as like a fishing net that expires by the end of the day. If you go out in the morning and you get a bunch of fish, you might as well reel them in and take the rest of the day off, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. I mean, I very rarely hold options to expiration either. Um, Once I drain the juice out of an option, if it's something that I have a lot of conviction in, I'll just roll it out and bring in more premium. Um, I roll options a lot more than you do. I believe you're in and out. If I'm really bullish about let's say Amazon or Meta or Nvidia, I'll roll. I'll take all the juice out of what I sold and be done with it. If mine become way in the money and my stuff's going to get called away, like on a covered call, I'll close out that position early too. There's no reason for me to sit around and wait for it to get called away, and I'll put the money somewhere else. The interesting thing though is because of the bullishness on Bitcoin, and I think the acceleration we're going to see as far as price as the world wakes up, and also there's a lot of other bullish things going on which we can talk about. I'm wanting to it maybe just be too slow for me to be like selling puts on Bitcoin proxies. I may just want to buy the calls and then convert them into Bitcoin itself. So I almost feel like for the first time, I really have a vision of the future. And it's like, you ever had that idea? Well, if you knew the result of a horse race before it happened and you could bet on it, that would just be amazing. I almost feel like I know the result of the horse race in advance, and then it's in how do you play it. And I feel like selling options at this point may be too conservative a way, to attack that knowledge. And also, I see, I've been trading since I've been obsessed with investing since I first started making my real dollar as a law clerk in Atlanta, Georgia, back in 1987 or 8. And for the first time, my limited watch list, it's pretty much green most of the time, regardless of what the market does. And I was an index investor for a long time, and so I went with the market, et cetera. So it's a very interesting time, and I'm actually, that's why I've called you up the last few weeks. How would you do this? How would you do that? Because I feel like I'm an expert on selling options. I use the wheel strategy. I use all kinds of different things. I'm really good at rolling options. I've done all the condors, spreads, all those kinds of things. But I've been asking you how to play buying options. And, I think at some point, I don't know if it's going to be today, but you might want to share some of your strategies because you've developed it on your own and you have a very unique way of doing it. And I think also it's important to the listeners to know we're similar in a way is because some people have algorithms and they're very scientific based in their trading. But I feel like you as a musician and an artist and me the same way, we kind of trade more as an art form and by feel and by knowledge, and that's worked for us. So I think that's an interesting thing for listeners to hear.
Totally agree. 100%. And to add to that, and we're gonna, when you and I kind of talked off camera about planning our podcast, I know we're gonna be, just folks who are listening, we're gonna be basically reviewing these things, these topics, and probably these companies in this discussion. You're gonna hear a similar discussion from us on a regular basis because we have the same discussion on a regular basis, and we constantly review how the narrative changes from one day to the next, because that's the difference. And to me, I like to liken it to people who count cards in Vegas. You're basically, when you see a whole bunch of low cards, you know that there's going to be some picture cards coming out. And that's a good time to go in a little heavier. I'm sorry to relate investing to gambling, but let's be honest. There is an aspect of gambling to trading options or investing in general. You know, two other little points that I will tell people just as a nugget without going into any great detail today. There's two things that I do that they pretty much tell you not to do. Number one, if I have a losing position, I'm going to dig that sucker so deep that it may not get back to where I want it to get to, but it only has to get a little bit to get me my money back. And if it jumps, if my narrative is correct, if my thesis is correct, then that is important, and that's where I can make a lot of money. That's exactly what I did with C3AI. C3AI was up to like $36 last week, and then it took a dive for no good reason to like 31 and change. I mean, lost $3 in like 2 days for no good reason when the rest of the market was rallying. And to me, that's just a spring that hasn't been sprung yet. And I put the odds at about 85% that between Thursday and Friday, that spring would jam. And I was right. However, I didn't get greedy. I didn't stick around to find out what would happen to the end of the day. And thank God I didn't. I saw that I was in some profit. And to me, any profit is good profit. And you take it. If it's $100 and you're happy with $100, take it. It's $1,000, take it. $10,000, take it. I mean, it's that greed thing that makes people go, well, let's see what happens next. Let's see what happens next. Let's see what happens next. And, sometimes that takes you to the moon. And then other times it takes you to hell. The best way to play it is follow your conviction and, play with guts, go bold. Don't go all crazy in, but go bold and, and count some cards. Because the cool thing is in the stock market, you can count cards and there's nothing they can do to you about it. In Vegas, they can ask you to leave.
Yeah. So what is counting cards in the market?
Counting cards in the market. So basically, like, we're watching the flow almost like the tide. The cards are like the tide. The tide goes in, the tide goes out. If you're at a card table, and you're watching blackjack and everybody's getting 3s and 2s and 4s and 6s and 7s and all that. I mean, that's not fun. That's not good for anybody. You want, picture cards and 10s and, aces and blackjack and all that. So if you basically are sitting there like watching a whole bunch of low cards coming across the table for about 10 minutes straight, that's you know at that point that the odds are, based on how many picture cards there are in that shoe, that there's going to be some picture cards coming. Maybe not that moment.
Yeah. Well, I understand it with cards. I'm trying to figure out how that works with a stock.
All right. So with the stock market, basically, if you've got, let's say, a week. Well, here we go. We just went through like earnings season. So that's all your volatility period. That's where the sellers and the buyers and everybody's having a good time. But now earnings season's over. So what happens now? This is where the people who have the big accounts basically go steady. And the gamblers, probably lose some money because there's not going to be that much volatility in the stocks because there's not going to be that much new news coming out in volatility. So right now, like I would say this is a time where I'm not going to be putting big chips on the table. I'm not going to be going all in and buying 100 option contracts. I'm glad that I did well in the last couple of weeks. I'm going to be basically being a lot more careful, as if I was at a blackjack table playing with, a pair of 3s right now or a pair of 6s. you want to have your minimum bet out there. But
Well,
all of
now that your account's all built up, you don't need to take as much risk, correct?
Yeah, and that's the other thing. It's like I like to play. I'm not somebody who just like chunks in lots of money into my account and then go makes money with that. Like there's been, I mean, my style, but what I enjoy doing and what kind of gets my endorphins flowing is taking a small amount of money, usually somewhere between $1,500 and $10,000, and popping it into the market, usually at like increments of 2,500 bucks at a pop, and all I got to do is catch one wave. And if I can catch the right set of waves, 3 or 4 in a row, then I can basically quadruple my account in a week. And I do that. I pretty much go almost all in every day. I've been doing it since the beginning because I usually play with a small account to start. And I'll turn 3,000 to 6,000 to 12,000 to 24,000 to 48,000 in 3 weeks.
Yeah. Well, now you've also been able to pay off all your debt, pay off all your bills, stuff your IRAs and all that. So you're kind of in a different place. And I think that's where you want to go, because then maybe you can be a little bit safer or think a little bit different. You can breathe a little bit easier, feel a little bit less pressure, because I don't think any human being really is at their top intellect under really high pressure situations. And so I think everything is kind of just going in the right direction for you right now.
Yeah, man, and I appreciate your help on that as a friend. I mean, you really opened my eyes to the IRA, and I think that and we've talked about this, what that really did by paying your bills and putting your stuff away and making sure that there's no ghosts in your brain that are distracting your clarity. To me, that's one of my edge. That's what I would explain is one of my edges, is basically being debt free and having a bit of an investment account, a long-term investment account. That way, if I lose what I'm gambling with on a day, it doesn't give me a bad day. It doesn't,
Yeah.
basically what most people would call a bad day to me is just a normal day, and a good day is a day of gains.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you took the advice on the IRA. It's really nice for a gunslinger to have, just money there for the future. I need to talk to you about an HSA, health savings account, which has triple taxation benefits, which you can put even more money in. Um, so we'll save that for another time. I think I talked to you about it years ago, but now that you're really killing it, I think it's time maybe for you to have some other tax-free, tax-sheltered investment vehicles.
I appreciate it, man. I don't remember hearing about that. Yeah, I think you did say something about it, but
So somebody who's married can get a family HSA, and you open an account like with HSA Bank or something like that, and you fund it. You can fund it. Usually it's around $7,500, but I think you're over 50, you might be able to put a little bit more in, $8,000. And that, first of all, is a deduction off your taxes. Then it goes into an account, and it grows. You can trade it. You can do whatever you want to do. It grows tax deferred. And then any and every time that you have a medical bill for your family, you put it in a box, you hold on to it. And so as long as when you take the money out at the end, you have some type of bill that covers it, you take it out tax free. So, everybody's got something at some point. We all go to the doctor for something, and there's other things, it covers medicine, it covers chiropractic, it covers whatever things people do. I don't think it covers vitamins, and I'm not sure if it covers massage. But anyway, you just keep a hold of all these receipts that you accumulate over time. And if you've been to a doctor before, you just go and get, you can go back and get receipts, etc. And it's triple tax free. You get a deduction when it goes in, grows tax deferred, and when you take it out, it's tax free. If the IRS asks you to show documentation that this was an actual medical expense. And it's one of the best kept secrets around. So
Thank you,
anyway,
brother.
I think on a week, if you make $100,000, you might want to think about open up one of these accounts, putting 7,500 in it. And if you want, you can put it into MicroStrategy and Bitcoin or whatever you want to do.
Dig that. I dig that, brother. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. So like I've been more of like a guy that studied that kind of thing and, that's been through, I've tried every type of trading thing. I realized that I had a lower risk tolerance than someone like you. So, I loved covered calls when I first found them. I've been a dividend investor looking for stocks that increase their dividends. I've got a portfolio like that. I've been an index investor. I was big into that. Over the years, I've tried different types of things. And the main thing is I've never sold. So all those portfolios are still there. And, I've got enough really where I could add to them if I want, but now I'm kind of having fun with, like I said, I kind of can see the future. I see the future as being AI, as being robotics, as being Bitcoin, and trading around that and accumulating. I think it's important probably for people to accumulate their wealth in something other than a currency that is being printed daily out of thin air and is getting diluted on a regular basis. And that's where I see Bitcoin as the ultimate store of value because of the limited value, the limited number. I don't know how many Bitcoin have been lost, but I think it's about 4 million.
Oh
And
God, yeah. Probably more than that. Shoot.
yeah, remember that guy that I don't know that he lost, I don't know how many thousand, but he threw his computer into the dump and he was going there and just freaking out and trying to dig through the dump and couldn't find it. I mean, he's lost probably now, close to $1 billion worth of wealth.
And then there was a guy who lost one over the ocean, right? He was like, it fell out of his hand. He had his whatever or something. Like literally, some guy lost his Bitcoin wallet over the ocean. So there's like some Bitcoin wallet at the Trezor or whatever at the bottom of the ocean.
And I guess his seed, well, or his seed phrase, if he had a seed phrase, he could, restore the wallet. But you just never know. I think where people are losing Bitcoin, it's like, okay, I've got Bitcoin and I've done it all right. I've got cold storage. I've got my seed phrase and it's in a drawer and my family doesn't really know enough about it so that if I pass away, they're not even sure, like a walk in front of a bus, get hit by a bus. They're not sure. They don't even know if they remember that you've got it, or if they do remember, they don't know how to get it. They don't know what to do with it. And maybe you've got your seed phrase in a drawer in your office at work, and not at home, and they just don't have the pieces put together. I think it's really important for folks to share with their family, that kind of stuff. But you don't always die in an orderly fashion, where you're sick and you're getting older and that kind of stuff. So I feel like the supply is every single day somebody dies unexpectedly and their Bitcoin or their crypto is lost.
That would be a good thing to flash up on the screen is some Bitcoin or crypto custodians that are available for the purpose of that situation, to simplify that. Like personally right now, I'm buying my Bitcoin through Robinhood and holding it on Robinhood because I think that, I trust their technology more than I trust, my own. I don't know, that maybe I'm wrong, but I kind of actually do trust Robinhood's
Well,
security.
unfortunately, I'm in the camp that has lost some Bitcoin because it's been on different exchanges. Voyager was a publicly traded company and they were paying interest on Bitcoin, and I had some there, significant amount, and it went belly up. Celsius went belly up with lots of people's money on there, BlockFi, of course, the FTX and everything like that. So basically, the best way to do it is to take your Bitcoin, put it in cold storage. Right. And, in your situation, I would have your seed phrase with your wife and in a couple different places, maybe in a safe deposit box, and then it's readily available should something unexpected happen to you. But there are custodians now. I haven't really looked into it too much, but it looks like there's this unchained.com, and they like yes, there's custodians, which is different than an exchange. I believe Michael Saylor has his stuff with a custodian, and both have access to the keys or something like that, or he only has access to his key. I'm not exactly sure it works. You're right. It's something to look into. For most people, though, they don't really have enough to worry about that. But like a Trezor or a Ledger is like $100. They're pretty easy to use, and you just plug it in and go down, get the software, and there's your stuff. I think there was some insecurity with Ledger for a while, which was unnerving. There's hackers everywhere. Honestly, I think Robinhood is probably pretty safe, and Coinbase is pretty safe. But if it's not, there's a saying: if it's not your keys, it's not your coins. So I'll talk to you, Curtis. I'll show you how to. Once you have a significant amount, we can get it off of there for you.
Appreciate that, brother. Well, I wanted to bring up something I'd like to bring up in our next show, our next podcast is I'd like to talk about Apple a little bit, specifically in the next podcast. I'd like to specifically, and just giving people a preface on that, really like to talk about where is that company going? Because there's some question about that, and I think that it's worth a good discussion. There's things that I see on the horizon happening with that company that are not being discussed, that I'd like to throw out into the world and get people's feedback on, and your feedback and stuff like that.
Yeah, sounds great. And I think we need to maybe, if people are still listening at this point, the reason that we're starting this podcast is because you and I, on a very regular basis, have some really compelling telephone conversations. And it was like, well, why not take that, all these years of experience? We're both kind of older guys now, I've been in this for a long time, and put it out in a podcast and share it with the world. So yeah, I think it's great. And so I think maybe we get close to wrapping this first one up. Maybe we'll get together again tomorrow. And to the listeners out there, I think we're going to put out content on a regular basis. Please like our channel, subscribe, make comments. We'll do our best to answer. And let's use our mutual knowledge and our foresight into the future to all become wealthy.
Amen, brother. I love that.
All right. Well, I think that ends episode 1 of Komie and Cole. Curtis, I appreciate you, my friend, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, David. I appreciate you as well. See you tomorrow.
All right. Take care. You too. Bye.